You're cruising through endless stretches of open land, and it's like you've entered a different realm. No, this isn't a scene from a sci-fi flick. It's Wyoming. Curious about why this massive state is so sparsely populated? Stick with me, and we'll dig into this enigma. Ever fantasized about ditching city life for wide open spaces? Wyoming could be your dream, or your nightmare. Intrigued? Let's start by looking at some surprising numbers. The land of extremes. Wyoming is a paradox. It's the 10th largest state in America, but it is also the least populated. As of the 2022 census, Wyoming had less than 600,000 residents. To put that into perspective, that's less than the population of Fresno, California. So, what's the deal? Is it the harsh climate, the economic landscape, or something more complex that keeps people at bay? Let's dive into one of the most obvious factors: the weather. The weather factor. Wyoming's climate is not for the weak. We're talking about bone-chilling temperatures that can plummet to negative 35 degrees Fahrenheit and snowfall that can accumulate up to 200 inches. It's like Mother Nature's extreme sports arena. Picture this. You're Sarah, a city slicker who decided to trade skyscrapers for mountain ranges. Then winter arrives, and you find yourself snowed in for days. The allure of peace and solitude suddenly morphs into a case of cabin fever. Sure, Alaska and North Dakota have brutal winters too. So, what sets Wyoming apart? Could it be the job market? Let's find out. Economic factors. Wyoming's economy is a mixed bag. It leans heavily on mineral extraction and tourism. While these sectors provide employment, the jobs are often seasonal or in far-flung areas, making it less than ideal for long-term living. Take the case of the coal mining town of Gillette, Wyoming. In 2016, two of the largest coal mines in the area laid off 15% of their workers due to declining coal demand and increased automation. This led to a ripple effect on the local economy, affecting everything from housing to retail. Many families had to make the tough decision to leave Gillette in search of more stable employment opportunities. If you're not grappling with Mother Nature, you're contending with an unstable job market. But hold on, there's another layer to this story. What about the social scene, or lack thereof? Social factors. Wyoming isn't just isolated by geography, it's socially secluded as well. The state has a low diversity score and a higher percentage of older adults, making it a challenging place for social butterflies. Imagine being Emily, a young professional eager for a new beginning. She quickly discovers that socializing in Wyoming is an uphill battle. The cafes close early, community groups are inactive, and online dating is a dead end. The isolation weighs on her, making her question her decision to move. The inhospitable landscape. Think you can handle any terrain? Wyoming's landscape might make you reconsider. The Rocky Challenge. Picture this. You've decided to fulfill your lifelong dream of owning a ranch. You've saved up, and you're scouting locations in Wyoming. But then, you hit a snag. Much of Wyoming's landscape is dominated by rugged mountains and arid regions, which pose serious challenges for construction and agriculture. Geological surveys indicate that Wyoming is dominated by the Rocky Mountains and the Great Plains, making significant parts of the state unsuitable for construction. For instance, the state has specific building codes that require adaptations for steep slopes, which adds to construction costs. The water woe. Water, or the lack thereof, is another hurdle. The state's arid and semi-arid climate means water is scarce, critical for both households and agriculture. Some areas require extensive irrigation systems, making farming both labor-intensive and expensive. Zoning laws often include water rights and restrictions, especially for agricultural uses, thus limiting the areas where farming is even possible. The windy wilderness. Believe it or not, Wyoming is one of the windiest states in the US. Sounds harmless, right? Until you consider that strong, consistent winds can cause soil erosion, complicating both farming and construction efforts. Not to mention, it's tough in everyday life. Imagine battling strong winds just to do simple tasks like taking your dog for a walk. Data shows that wind speeds in Wyoming can reach up to 12.9 miles per hour on average, making it one of the windiest states in the US. This poses unique challenges to infrastructure and agriculture. The natural beauty of Wyoming's landscape is undeniable, but when it comes to making a life here, the very terrain that draws us in poses some significant obstacles. From rugged mountain slopes to the scarcity of water to the incessant wind, Wyoming demands resilience from its residents, something to think about before making the big move. Compilation of reports and studies detailing the difficulties of inhabiting Wyoming's diverse landscapes. If this has piqued your curiosity, go ahead and smash that like button and share this video. You won't want to miss what's coming up next. The educational dilemma. Can families afford to gamble on the educational system here? The sparse landscape's impact on schools. Imagine you're a parent considering a move to Wyoming. The low population might seem like an advantage, smaller class sizes, and more individual attention, right? Well, it's not that simple. The sparse population creates unique challenges for schools. Resources are limited, and it can be tough to attract quality educators to remote areas. According to the Wyoming Department of Education, many school districts have reported difficulties in attracting and retaining highly qualified teachers, especially for specialized subjects. Transportation and extracurriculars. Getting to school itself is a hurdle for many Wyoming families. Long commutes in rural areas can mean waking up at the crack of dawn, and opportunities for extracurricular activities are sparse. What's more, these commutes can affect student performance and engagement. Studies have shown that long travel times to and from schools in rural areas are associated with lower academic achievement and reduced participation in extracurricular activities. The struggle for diverse educational opportunities. Low populations often mean fewer educational choices. Many towns have just one primary and secondary school, so if that school doesn't meet a student's needs, too bad. You're out of luck unless you can afford private education or homeschooling. According to statistics, Wyoming has fewer charter schools and alternative educational institutions compared to other states with higher populations. At first glance, Wyoming's educational system may seem cozy and intimate, but the reality is a complex web of challenges. From struggling to attract quality educators to long commutes and limited educational choices, Wyoming's sparse population poses a real gamble for families. So, before you make that leap, consider if you're willing to roll the dice on your child's education. Compilation of reports, surveys, and interviews that elaborate on the challenges faced by Wyoming's educational system. Connectivity and isolation. It's not just the social scene that's lacking. Think about your Wi-Fi. The digital divide. Suppose you're an entrepreneur looking to set up a remote office in Wyoming. You've heard about the low costs and serene landscapes, so it sounds like a great deal. Until you realize that your remote work paradise is a connectivity desert. In many parts of Wyoming, broadband access is more of a luxury than a given. According to the Federal Communications Commission, FCC, as much as 25% of rural Wyoming lacks access to broadband service, a critical handicap in today's digital age. When dial-up is still a thing. Imagine you're Alice, a freelance designer who moved to a small town in Wyoming. You're in the middle of submitting a project to a client when your internet goes out. The only backup? Good old dial-up. In Wyoming, outdated technologies like dial-up and DSL are often the only alternatives, significantly hindering both work and leisure activities. Telecom surveys have shown that a surprising number of households still rely on dated technologies for internet access, indicating a significant digital divide. The costs of being connected. Even if you find a location with reasonable broadband service, get ready to pay a premium. Due to the lack of competition and the high cost of providing service in such sparsely populated areas, internet fees can be astronomical. Various reports suggest that the average cost of broadband service in Wyoming can be up to 30% higher compared to more urbanized states. Sure, Wyoming offers a break from the social hustle and bustle, but it also risks cutting you off from the digital world. From broadband deserts to outdated tech and high costs, think twice about how important your digital life is before leaping to the cowboy state's remote corners. A compilation of reports and surveys that elucidate the challenges of telecommunications in Wyoming. Law and Order, the Wyoming edition. How does the sparse population impact policing and emergency services? Policing the vast wilderness. Imagine you're Officer Smith, patrolling a county that's larger than some states. You get a call, but the location is 50 miles away, through winding mountain roads. Wyoming's enormous size and low population density make policing a logistical nightmare, affecting response times and crime resolution rates. Law enforcement reports indicate that the state's large land area and small population can lead to increased response times, especially in emergencies. Fewer eyes, more crime? The vast open spaces might suggest fewer opportunities for crime, but that's not always the case. The isolation and lack of surveillance can make certain crimes like poaching, trespassing, and even substance abuse more frequent and harder to police. Crime statistics reveal a mixed bag when it comes to the impact of a sparse population on crime rates. While violent crime might be low, property and environmental crimes can be surprisingly high. The volunteer paradigm. Many small communities in Wyoming rely heavily on volunteer emergency services, from firefighting to medical first responders. While these volunteers are often highly dedicated, they lack the resources and sometimes the training of a full-time professional force, affecting the quality of service. Law enforcement reports have highlighted the dependence on volunteer services, pointing out the potential limitations this can bring in emergency scenarios. So, while the sparse population might give you room to breathe, it also stretches the fabric of law and order thin. If you are planning on being a lone wolf out in Wyoming's wilds, remember you are also further from help when you might need it most. A compilation of reports and studies detailing the unique challenges of maintaining law and order in a sparsely populated state. So, what have we learned about the seemingly paradoxical case of Wyoming? It is a land of expansive beauty, but with terrain that can stymie construction. It boasts a rich array of natural resources, yet its economy can be as volatile as its weather. Education suffers due to sparse populations, and let's not forget about the digital divide that could put a damper on your Netflix binging or Zoom meetings. Lastly, if you find yourself in a bind, emergency services might not be just around the corner. Wyoming, then, is a state of contrasts. Its vast landscapes and open skies call to some, but for many others, the logistical challenges of living here, be they economic, educational, or even legal, are just too substantial to overlook. It's no wonder Wyoming remains America's least populated state. If you found this content intriguing, do not forget to subscribe for more such explorations into America's mysteries. We will dive into the enigmas and complexities that make this country so fascinating, one state at a time.